Church Tuesday approved a change in the wording of the Constitution to include same-sex marriage, a move that threatens to further splinter one of the country's largest mainline Protestant denominations. A majority of the 171 regional presbyteries of the church have now voted to change the wording of the Constitution to define marriage as a commitment between two people, where before it was a man and a woman. The new wording takes effect June 21. You know, on your marriage license in California, it used to say man and wife. Now it's two individuals. On the marriage, it's happening. It's affecting us. All of this is serving to undermine evangelism. I'll tell you the reason I get so passionate about this. I have a lot of friends that are members of other churches. I have a lot of friends. You know, I'm part of the NRB, National Religious Broadcasters Organization. All of this is serving to undermine evangelism. I'll tell you the reason I get so passionate about this. I have two individuals that are members of other churches. As their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? The seventh day, I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? The seventh day, I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic biblical fundamentals. They're saying, I want to be a Christian. Where do I go? I'm excited and I'm worried. I'm excited because we are as their churches that once used to be more Bible-based are sacrificing these basic Genesis. Those are foundational pillars that we can't tamper with. I don't believe we should tamper with any of the Bible. But I think it's a foundational issue. It's not just some little nuance of theology that is not significant. I think it has a chain reaction, a major chain reaction that will come from getting this wrong. You know what we need? The greatest want in the world is the want of men that will not be bought or sold, men that will stand for the right though the heavens fall, men that are as true to duty as the needle is to the pole. Greatest want is for there to be a revival. What does it say? Last words in the Old Testament, Malachi chapter 4. I'll pour out my Spirit. No. I'll send you Elijah the prophet, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. We need to have a revival of men in the church that will stand up for Christ and not be that courage, that manliness. This is what Ellen White pled for so many times. And men in North America and around the world are being neutered by our culture. Is that blunt enough for you? And that is not good for marriages. That is not good for children. That is not good for the church. It is not good for the country. Certainly not good for the military. So this is a gateway doctrine. You've heard of gateway drugs? And when you have a poster child and you want to promote something, you take the most heart-moving, most beautiful, most attractive, most innocent-looking child, and you hold them forth to be the representative for the whole thing. That's what a poster child is. The most attractive and innocent doctrine that is a compromise that's being held forth in the most beautiful language is this issue of women's ordination. Who wouldn't want to have fairness and everybody be able to do everything? And you can use such beautiful language to promote something like that, but it requires a change of theology that is going to have a domino effect in other areas. Well, friends, so where do we go from here? It's being suggested at our upcoming general conference that we already know that there are certain parts of the world, certain conferences and unions that said we're going to do this no matter what. Hasn't that been clear to everybody? And so if we vote to stick with what we've always believed and not to ordain women as pastors, as a world church teaching, they're basically saying you're going to divide the church because we're going to keep doing it anyway. And I've heard those statements, regardless of what the vote is. The horse is out of the barn. We're not going back. I've heard those statements. And so they'll say, you're going to be responsible for dividing the church if you don't compromise and let us do what we want. I knew a dear lady one time, her husband used to beat her. And then she'd leave him. And then he'd call her on the phone and say, you got to come back or I'm going to kill myself. And she'd come back. He'd be good for a while. Then he'd hit her again. Then she'd leave. Say, I'm going to commit suicide and it'll be your fault. She went through that for a while and finally she came to her senses and said, well, if you're going to kill yourself, that is your decision. But don't blame it on me. We believe what the church has believed since Adam. If you look at the foundational teachings of the Lutherans and of the Baptists and of the Presbyterians and of the Methodists, and when they were formed, the Calvinists, these churches, this was a self-evident truth. It was not debated. It was understood. It was accepted. And there was great reformations and revival in the context of having the biblical order. But you start turning that around, and it's just not going to be healthy for the church. So I am praying that God's people will stand for the Bible. I don't know exactly what the political maneuvering and logistics and the mechanics of what's going to happen with the parliamentary procedure, and we're just going to have to give that to God's hand and pray that He guides. I pray that the people of God will vote their conscience at that time. But I want to give you a little word of encouragement. I told you I was going to mention the Baptists. The Southern Baptists in 1984 started ordaining women as pastors. Before 84, there were a number of women that were being ordained as pastors, and they said, you can't go back now. We've done it. Finally, it came to their convention, and after careful study, they said, we can't support this biblically. If we're going to be a Bible church, we need to reverse this. And they voted a policy that only men were ordained as pastors. And some said, we're going to leave and we're going to divide. And well, you know what? For the next 20 years after that vote, they grew to 16 million members. And I've talked to and visited with some of the people that were part of that convention and know some of the leadership. And boy, it was a struggle, and it was very painful. But they said, we need to be faithful to Christ. I'm hoping our church will have that kind of courage, because you'll see others looking around. They're going to look and they say, the Seventh-day Adventists really do stand for the Bible, and we're going to be consistent. And just pray. You need to pray for this. And with everything else happening in the world, you look at what's happening in the religious front in the world, and with I made a video this week a group of Christians from several denominations met in Phoenix and said, let's just get rid of any of our denominational barriers and let's reunite with Rome. And the Pope sent them a personal message, and he's coming to America. And you can just see so many things falling into place for the final events. This could be the catalyst for a revival, for a shaking and the outpouring of the Spirit on our people. And you know what it's going to be based on? It's got to be based on truth. So I'm worried that this could affect the unity of our message. Some will argue that for the sake of unity, we should compromise truth. I don't believe that's accurate. Let me give you Jesus said, sanctify them through thy truth. He wants us to be one. But what did he say in John 17? One on the Bible. If you look in historical sketches, 197, we cannot purchase peace and unity by sacrificing the truth. The conflict might be long and painful, but at any cost, we must hold fast to the Word of God. I want to read you another one. Gospel Workers, page 92. We cannot surrender the truth in order to accomplish this union. Speaking of unity, men would effect a union through conformity to popular opinions, through much compromise with the world. But truth is God's basis for the unity of His people. And so while some are saying, well, you know, some parts of the world, they think that we should not ordain women, and there are parts of the world that think we should, let's just all vote to let everyone decide for themselves. You know, if you don't stand for something, you really fall for anything. And it's kind of like the story, Aesop had a fable. And it said there was a war between the beasts and the birds. And the bird said to the bats, will you fight with us against the beasts? And the bat said, yes, I'm a bird, I'm a bird. And then the beasts said to the bat, will you fight with us against the birds? And the bat said, I'm a beast, see, I can crawl. But when the war came out, he didn't fight with anybody. And after the war, they said, you can't stay with us. And the bird said, you can't stay with us. The beast said, you can't stay with us. And they say, that's how the bats ended up living in the dark. Of course, that's Aesop. But you got to stand for something. We need to stand for the truth. You'll never have to apologize if you say to Jesus, I wanted to stand for your word and what the Bible said. Will there sometimes be division? Did Jesus say, I've sent the word of God so that there wouldn't be any division? Or did he say, I came not to send peace but a sword? There may be division. I think we should do all we can to unite based on the Bible. Have we been told in the last days that the church, there's going to be a shaking? There's going to be some polarizing. Will we be honest? Is there some division now? Already. I mean, we can't live in this fantasy that we're all going to just wake up one day and no one's going to have any differences. So how do we decide? By what's going to be the least painful or what Jesus says? And I hope that we'll do that, friends. And I pray that we'll take a stand for the truth. If we don't get this right, if we're willing to compromise the Word of God for some illusion of peace on what we think is this teaching, what's making us think we will not compromise the Word of God for something like the Sabbath in the near future? And that's why I think it's so important that we take a stand for the Word of God and for the foundation of Christ's teaching, the Bible. Amen?